Looks like it's gone.
Yeah, now I gotta get back to my Zoom. Okay, we good. And then I gotta go to record. We're right at, we got 1 more minute. We'll be exactly 7. We'll start exactly. And Cheryl, I can't see your face, or can I? There we go, good. And your mic is mute still. So if you can turn your mic on.
I got it on.
Okay, we're good now. We're ready to rock and roll. And we're right at 7 o'clock.
Right.
So we are going to start. Let me start my recording here. Good, we are ready. Well, we're going to get started here. My name is Jamal Binding. I'm the chair of the Moore Board of Directors. And this is one of a series of events that we provide in the community from our organization. Moore is a nonprofit organization, Movement in Omaha for Race Equity, and we've been hosting a number of community forums and events. Particularly, this event is supported by Nebraska, Humanities Nebraska, which has helped us with a small grant to help us bring some of these events to the community. We're an organization that primarily deals with anti-racism and race equity. The organization started about 10 years ago, and we changed our name about a year ago. And one of our agendas is, with all the information and things that are going on in our community and nationwide dealing with race issues, we felt a need to kind of pivot and deal with a lot more of that in this community. And by the way, we're one of the very few organizations, if any, who has anti-racism within their mission statement. And I want to start without much further ado. I would like to introduce our presenter this morning, or this evening rather, and Cheryl Weston is a longtime community advocate for African Americans, and particularly in North Omaha, where she lives. Cheryl is a college graduate, entrepreneur, and a community organizer. I've known Cheryl for her work with Lead Safe, which she was working on many years ago, which addressed some of the lead contamination in North and South Omaha, particularly downtown Omaha area, but she was very more focused on helping deal with that issue and organize people to help address that. She is a volunteer in helping the oppressed and the undercast in our system and our society. And also I knew her and interacted with her when she hosted her weekly show on cable, Cox Cable 22, where she spoke to many grassroots folks and individuals about issues that affected their lives and so on. Doing those programs and elsewhere, she challenged a lot of people about some of the paradigms that deal with apartheid and negativity in Omaha, dealing with dysfunctional white supremacy in the city, as well as she was able to work with different coalitions of people to make some of those things come to a real or develop some outcomes. We invited her on tonight to talk about some of the challenges that she faced and issues that she dealt with, and also maybe give a brief overview of some of the things she worked on, and when she was doing some of her long-time volunteer work. She's still involved in the community, and I had a chance to interact with her recently when she went down to City Hall and testified on a couple of issues dealing with public policy, particularly from the unicameral, but some of the state senators came to Omaha, she talked about that, but also she's been involved in challenging the city council, some of their issues. So first, I'd like to start off, Cheryl, if you can share a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get right into the questions. The format tonight is we're going to have Cheryl talk. I'm going to provide a brief interview, and then I'm going to open it up and let people talk to her, because one of her expertise is helping to organize our community, with talking about how come she's been involved in the struggle for this long, because most people, they get tired, they just stop. And so Cheryl's kind of a great role model for many people. So we're going to open it up after I interview with a number of questions, then let you have an opportunity to talk directly to Cheryl Weston. So Cheryl, can take it away.
Thank you, Ashma, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Yeah, we have been working a long time together. Sometimes we're on the same page and sometimes we weren't, but we always are able to disagree to agree. So I think, or agree to disagree. I think you covered it a lot about me, and why I've been in this is because I think I believe it was my calling. And I think when we had the pandemic, you had a lot of time on your hands and to think and meditate. And one of my things, people have their own faiths and beliefs, but I am a believer of God who is in my life. And I kept asking, what is my next career? What am I supposed to be doing? What is my destiny? And it came back to keep on being the things that I'm doing or were doing, and being involved in the community, believing in that, helping others. And so that's the reason why I think I keep on doing what I'm doing. And I wrote an editorial that I'm putting on my YouTube channel, is why do I fight? And in that, it describes exactly why I do what I do and why I'm fighting, why I believe, and there's so much. And like I say, I think the pandemic and the 2020 elections just really spurred me on to, and when I say that, it said that there was hope. When I looked at those elections nationally and then locally, and when I saw like the city council race, I saw so many different individuals jumping out to put something out there. And I'm like, it's time for a change. Well, I knew it was time for a change, but it gave hope that we could have a change this time. And then the legislature with Senator Chambers being termed out and Senator McKinney, I just saw that ray of young life, hope that things could be different, and would be going down there to work with Senator Wayne. And I'm like, oh, and then I met some other young people in Omaha, like Precious McCashin, who's coming back to Omaha, folks. She's going to be the executive director for the Democratic Party. Very inspiring young lady. So it was like, we're finally getting some people who are willing to speak up and speak out. Jaqueen Fox was another one. I've been involved talking with Manny Cook. So, there's just something that's out there that's been like spurring me on, and then incidents that have happened recently at the city council.
If I can, I want to get to some of the questions. I know we got like 5 or 6 at least want to cover, and then we're going to. But I want to get to some of that. One of the questions that came up is Lead Safe. Some people may not be aware of your job and what you did as a volunteer, and also dealing with that lead abatement. What became of that whole Lead Safe Coalition and work that you did? Because that's how you became even more known to people citywide and even in the state, because you were one of the primary instigators to push back at that lead poisoning that happened in Omaha that affected many families. And there was millions of dollars that came in. But what is the end results of that work that you did with that program?
The Lead Safe Omaha Coalition was something that inspired me to get out and be involved, is because that affected the majority of children in North Omaha and South Omaha that were in poverty. And it was inspiring is to say, here's the EPA coming in. And it ended up with the Omaha, Douglas County area was the largest residential Superfund site ever
in the country.
And we had to fight for that. And what, it was kind of hurtful, but it inspired me to keep fighting, is because our little organization started out, and because the EPA was suing Union Pacific, I had in people who were from my community opposing, because they were being paid by Union Pacific, to take and fight this.
No, you say they were fighting against what you were doing, even though we had the problem with lead here?
Because they were being paid by Union Pacific.
Okay.
The Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance was set up and paid for originally Union Pacific. Brenda Council, who was the lead on that, paid by Union Pacific. And that's public record. It's in the record. You can find out how much they paid. And then the Douglas County Health Department, who used to befriend the Lead Safe Omaha Coalition, became part of that against it, where they all took over. So what happens? Yes, we did get properties cleaned up, but who is in charge of it now? It was all finished out by Union Pacific, lost and had to pay over $200 million, but the Douglas County Health Department became over the lead situation. Omaha Healthy Kids was financed and started. The CAG group, Community Alliance, or I think it was Community Alliance Group, something like that. I know just more or less from being known as the CAG, they all took over. But in the end results, and I'm proud of, we fought as a little nonprofit group. We were able to get people from the community that was most affected by the lead. We were able to get them jobs that were paying $21+ some as much as $32.95 an hour. And all they had to have was training called a HAZWOPER certificate. And we were able, the Lead Safe Omaha Coalition was able to get the EPA to do and pay for a whole class and get those individuals. So I'm proud of that work, even though it was hurtful that we had individuals from within the community fought against it.
Wow. Wow. And,
So,
it's part of the conversation we've had historically, particularly in North and South Omaha. Some of the agents of the system, as my mother's friend used to use the term, friends of the system would sometimes fight against grassroots and grass tops. I was going to ask you.
I remember your mother. Your mother came to one of our meetings, and you didn't hold your mother back. Rest in peace. Your mother spoke right up, and I can remember one thing she says, and I'm tired of you. It was something similar, I'm paraphrasing, but on the backs of my people in my community. So your mother was very forceful.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sure. Over the years, I've been critical of African Americans who retire from their jobs in both public and private sectors. As oftentimes we'll bring these imported Black folks in from out of town, and they'll work for a number of years and they'll go back to where they came from. At the end of the day, we're still stuck with our problems. And I do know that some organizations will bring in so-called experts, but then they expect grassroots folks to do the heavy lifting. And my question is, the struggle is still there. Why do we give up sometime when we face some of these adversity? I know that you have not, but why do you think some people give up so quickly when the task is still not done in terms of social justice, and particularly as it relates to some of the challenges we face in North Omaha?
I think there's several things. That reason why people give up is because sometimes they are underneath such constraints to speak out and speak up. And now we have all this social media, and I'm saying, you get out there on social media and you say something, do you not realize that it's being monitored? So even if you were afraid because it might be your job or something, once you go out on social media and you put it's out there. So people know. So just go ahead, say what you have to say and be willing to take the counsel. Believe in what you're standing for. And now I think is even a more important time not to be afraid because of your job, because, hey, the market, they need you. So they're not going to fire you real quick. They need you. Speak up. Just go right ahead and speak out. And then the other thing is, which I think is, we have this tendency that some of us are out there fighting, and then all of a sudden, and the system knows who to pick, the weak, they will give them a little tidbit, just a little tidbit, and then they sell out.
Wow. Yeah, as you mentioned that, I was at a presentation at one of the events we did back in the day, probably about maybe 2 years ago. And there were a number of people who spoke to some issues, and they were even retired, former teachers and so on, and even a person worked for a corporation. And I asked a question in front of this large group of about 60 or 70 people, why is it you're not involved in social justice and you're retired and you believe in it? And the person says, I'm afraid they might affect my pension. And I'm like, how does that work? I thought once you get your Social Security check and your pension, they can't touch that for the rest of your life. And then I remember years ago, I was interviewing Dolores Goodland, who was very much involved in Catholic charity circles and so on. She was a convert. And I was interviewing on the radio. She said some very strong, harsh stuff. And I said, well, why are you saying that? How do you get away with that? She says, what are they going to do? Take my Social Security check? I don't think so. And so basically, she just went on to share that as people who live in a democracy, we have a right to speak truth to power. And it's unfortunate people don't do that as much. Now, one of the things I was going to ask you is, what are some of those current activities you're working on that other people may be want to get involved in? Because I know you are still in motion, because I've seen you in motion recently for all these years. But what are some other activities you would share with our viewers or participants that you're involved in that other people may want to get involved in, that you see as viable to deal with some of the social justice and particularly dealing with race issues?
A couple of things that I'm working on right now, and it's going to be coming out with some more information on, is one is, and I'm very excited about this, it's called the North Omaha Pride Association. And it's made up of minority contractors, Black contractors, and qualified Black contractors. Because I've never been in favor of just because you're Black or brown or something that you should get certain privileges just for that point. But this group of individuals have united, and they're showing so much. And I'm so proud of the president, Tony Reynolds. And one of the reasons why is because this is a young man And I remember him 12 years ago when we tried to do this and we couldn't get it together. We couldn't become united. But his whole focus, he's a general contractor now, has gone to school, master's. I think he's beginning to work on his doctorate. But his whole focus is we need to come together and see that some of us can get this pie, a piece of the pie, instead of none, which is what's been happening, particularly with all the money that's coming in, the art funds, the development that's in Omaha. And so what he has said is he wants to work, not just so that he's there, but that he can reach back and help somebody else. That, is all. So I'm working with him. The other thing that we'll be working with there's an upcoming meeting I'm working with Willie Hamilton on is what can we do with all of this money that's coming in for the North 24th Street revitalization program and the properties. There are 17 properties that are on North 24th Street. And when those are up, what can we do as a community to be able to, from people within the community, to be able to purchase, to develop? That's something that's important. We're going to have a meeting March the 3rd down at the Fabric. And so we're hoping, I think it begins at 6 o'clock. And so we're hoping people will come out to find out, because Willie Hamilton of Black Men United put out something on Facebook and about North Omaha, is it for sale? And it was just inspiring to see how many people said, no, I want to be involved. I want to be invested. So that's third. And then one of the things that I'm really wanting is to expose what's going on with the North Omaha turnback tax. That money is supposed to be going to organizations and activities that are going to promote gang or address gang, the development of North Omaha. And on that, there's a list, and we have it tabulated, the people that I'm working with, to show where that money has been going to various organizations that are not really giving back. We're paying for something. And I'm going to throw out one thing that just happened on this last deal. $22,000 is being paid or donated, given to as a grant to the Native Omaha Day. And I'm like, okay, Native Omaha Day, and these are supposed to be for projects that are happening or going to be happening. It's Native Omaha Day doesn't come back for 2 years. But we're paying, they gave $22,000 to them to pay for some past bills. That needs to get out in the public. I'm hoping that maybe there's someone here that'll be watching your program on Facebook or some that is willing to get behind this and call for an investigation. This should not be happening. That is not what Senator Chambers put the North Omaha turnback tax in. So those are three of the big things that I feel like I'm working on right now. Yeah. But I'm also working on things that are coming before the city council. That is a prime factor for me. And I'm hoping that maybe I can inspire other people to come forth to the city council and present.
One of the things I actually saw you recently when you were talking to Sarah Johnson and her husband, Scott, and basically you were challenging the city council on some issues, and I saw them, they have a special program that comes up where they deconstruct the city council. But when I interviewed on our webpage, they basically show that a lot of the deals and things are made behind closed doors.
Correct.
And I went on to say some of the city council members don't even know what's on the agenda, which is a painful. And then again,
till Tuesday.
Sarah made a comment that she said she's not going to go to any more meetings because, in spite of the public conversations or public presentations and testimonial, they pretty much do what they want to do. And so, again, one of the reasons we have district elections is to get elected officials to listen to their constituents. And I think that some of them have not done a good job at that in light of looking at things that have happened recently. I want to switch up a little bit and ask you about where I saw you recently, where you and I connected after years of not seeing each other, and I know I saw you there at Senator McKinney's resolution dealing with LR 171, and Senator McKinney raised a very powerful question about all these so-called nonprofits in our community that are not connecting to some of the greatest needs dealing with poverty. He wanted to shift the way he talked at this resolution, that maybe we should put some money in businesses or places that have a much better empirical outcome of dealing with that. Another thing with more is that we've started a committee to deal with research. And again, the data, and what I found out just in my professional careers are a number of nonprofits that have no indicators. They don't put stuff on their webpage about who they serve racially, or even how they achieve some of their goals strategically, whatever. But my question to you is that you were there, and why was that testimonial so important that you gave that day? And why are there so many people who are trying to protect the citizens or the status quo without any outcomes from the work they do to help so-called North Omaha? By the way, Senator McKinney said we've spent millions of dollars over the years, and we have little to show for it because the poverty level has gone up, and you don't see a lot of those funds touching the hands of the very people. So talk to us a little bit about that testimonial you gave, and why is that resolution, or it was basically a hearing type to just talk about how do we help make more accountability. Give us some more feedback on that, Cheryl.
Okay, that was, and it was a very important bill that Senator McKinney was getting, and I felt very, how should I say, I felt like it was necessary to come out because, and I'm not knocking nonprofits, don't get me wrong. Some nonprofits do a good job in helping the community, but they're selected. They select who they want to help, and then they give just enough, not to sustain that organization, just enough to get you in. And then what are you going to do? In order to get more, you got to go along with their program. So it was important that we understand, and North Omaha has more nonprofits in it than anywhere else in the city of Omaha. But however, the main nonprofits, and I will say it just like the art funds that are city, the city is giving those to two nonprofit organizations, Omaha Community Foundation and the United Way, to decide how much that 25 million to one, and I think it's a total of 55 million, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 55 million, and I don't remember exactly how it was divided up, but I know it's just going to those two. Those are the same. We have nonprofits that continuously give to the same, the money's given to them, and it's to the same group. And if you go back, and I heard this at a meeting I was with 2 weeks ago, and Mike Maroney stood up and said that he had did some studies, I think it was with UNO, and I could be wrong in that, but his point was this study that was done 10 years ago, and it said the same conditions, if not worse, exist in North Omaha. Wow. So all this money that's going, where are we at? And as Senator McKinney was speaking out, yes, they're giving to certain deals, certain ideals, but we need the economic part. We need businesses to be on North 24th Street. We need businesses and entrepreneurship and ownership, because if you don't have ownership of it, you don't have it. It's the same old, same old. And also on that, after that, I had a meeting because someone spoke out against it. I had a meeting with one of the really most known foundation owners, and I tried to get across a point. We're not saying take away everything. What we're saying is these foundations, it still is what you want to see. It's not what we may want to see. And I don't know if you watched the last city council meeting when they had the vote for the North 24th Street redevelopment plan, but Gwen Easter gave a very powerful, when she spoke, that how this nonprofit organization came in, took her ideals. She thought she's helping, she thought getting involved, which is the same thing that happened to us by integration. We let it take us over instead of us being integrated to be able to gain something. But she gave that powerful, is that you took over the ideals and shut me out. And one of the things that I still have a problem with is the learning centers. Those learning centers took away small home daycares, particularly in North Omaha. They took away, and now the whole thing is set up and run by them to what they see is the need. And that's one of the things that we need to stop is allowing, and as long as we allow this to happen, and I'm not sure of how we can change, but we have to make something. As long as those individuals are teaching our children, how do you think anything's going to change?
Well, I want to add to that, and I know we're going to open it up because I saw there's some questions coming in the chat, and people are around, and we want to be much more participatory. But I'll say three things real quickly. United Way doesn't have a strong track record in North and South Omaha of challenging conditions because there's nobody down there who really is engaged in our community like we are. And again, how can an organization be somewhere in the Federal Reserve building, wherever they're hanging out at, and never touch the hands of the very people they're supposed to be helping with poverty? So I'll call them out on that because at one point, when I first came from Botswana, I worked for 6 months and I saw how they work internally. But again, they back in the day used to have a lot more community meetings, engage with the agents they funded, and had more accountability of who are you serving, and they kept track of those demographics. So that happened. Second thing, going back to the learning community, it's a waste of money. At the end of the day, I've challenged them over the years. They at one point was paying an organization $100,000 for public relations. Again, we're talking about public funds that's going to a white elephant. For the end of the day, you look at their data, it doesn't show that they've changed the achievement levels of many of those families in our community, include those children. So you got these folks who sit in these meetings, and really I'm upset is they just got through giving $3 million to the Early Childhood Buffett Institute to talk about racism. Are you serious? Racism is serious issues, requires serious people. And when you play in the Super Bowl, you don't send your third string quarterback in. Again, if I'm lying, I'm flying, as we say. But no, there's some, and then the other thing I think we have to be sensitive, Cheryl, what you alluded to is that you got to make sure you have people on boards and committees and management. And years ago, I was talking to Ernest, who's over at Family Housing Advisory Service, and they serve low-income people and people in the community. And it says, how many people on your board are low income? He said, none. I said, well, come on now. Are you serious? Again, you want to bring people to your circle, but have some ways of touching the hands of the people you're going to serve. If not, it becomes like this great white savior or this paternalistic plantation system. And the reason we don't cut our tongue is because when you speak truth to power, you don't have to apologize in a democracy. And that's part of the issue. But my point back to is what you just said is that if we're going to change the narrative and the scope of our community, it means we've got to call things out and call them in. And some of these folks are not even playing hardball. They're playing some kind of twiddlywinks or whatever they play when they're not serious about trying to challenge the conditions that affect many poor people and people of color in Omaha. So I call them out and say that, but I know that's something you've been doing for a while. We got a couple of chats coming in. But
can I just add one more thing to that is, Ajmal, you spoke so true on that. And that is her problem. Omaha, we talk about education and not listen to the entire recent 15th, annual North Omaha Empowerment Summit, whatever. But that part that I heard on education, I was like, are you serious? This is what you want to talk about? When Omaha has one of the highest rates of young Black males not graduating. And one of the things when I talked with the individuals like about at the Learning Center and they felt how important and everything it is, what you're missing is you can take a child, and I do believe that Head Start and getting that pre is great and they need it. But you take and you put that child in there and you go for the 3-4 years, whatever it is they're through. And then you send them to the Omaha public school system. And so then how far do they get behind? And if you think I'm not kidding and lying, is go to the Reader, who last month, February's issue, talked about what the OPS system is and how many of the parents took their children out during the pandemic because they felt their child was getting behind. So now you've got a child and you put them in here, but you don't change. That child goes to school. And when they go home, have you made their home life any better? Have you made it where their parents are going to be there because they haven't, some of them have had to work 2 and 3 jobs? Have you made their life better? And if we don't keep on, we don't speak out, we're losing generation after generation after generation. And we need to do something to change that.
Well, the other thing is the truancy issue is very bad. You got a lot of kids.
Oh, it is.
In school. And again, a high percentage of African Americans. And what I find disturbing is that you have some of these so-called programs about how these kids are doing so well, but all you gotta do is look at the end results. How many graduate from college? How many get degrees? How many get meaningful income? And so part of the issues we face in our community is that I'm gonna switch up a little bit. We got a couple of things I want to respond to on the chat, Cheryl, but I'm gonna give you one last, if I can. What are some of those things we can do as a community to help create more opportunities to challenge things in our neighborhoods and also to bring people together? Because one of the things we do at Moore is we want to give people a safe place to speak truth to power, but also develop a sense of racial healing and racial reconciliation. And we also believe in talking about reparations, things like that. So what can we do to improve the quality of race relations in our community, particularly when we live in segregated environments, community and enclave? So give us a little feedback on that before we open it up to the chat and other feedback from other people.
Well, I believe that we need to have conversations like this, but we've had so many conversations that we need to take an action. After you have so many, and we know what the problem is, what are the solutions? Let's start doing some solutions, actions. And also, I think we need to hold people accountable that are in elected positions. We need to hold them accountable. We need to hold these individuals who are out here promoting and saying, I'm speaking for North Omaha, and I'm going to have to, because it just burns me, is I am so sick and tired of these so-called leaders that the powers of be have decided they speak for North Omaha and nobody else can speak for them. We don't have to continue to allow individuals to be designated our leaders. When you see something in the paper, on the TV, whatever, and they talk about West Omaha, they talk about successful businessmen, they talk women, entrepreneurs, they talk about how great this is going up and that. They talk about elected political officials. They'll say city councilman Harding or city councilwoman Melton or something, but they don't say leaders from North Omaha. They don't say leaders from West Omaha, but they'll say the leaders of North Omaha. And I think we need to, in order to change, we've got to speak up and we've got to demand accountability. And if you so-called designated leaders are for us, then let's hold you. Let's get up there and speak out and tell the truth. Let's knock as on many doors as we possibly can and say, hey, you know what? We want to hold you accountable. We want this. This is what we want, not what you want. And I'm tired of these individuals who have been designated our leaders. And I'm going to go back to what your mother said, is they are making this financial legacy and wealth off the backs of the community that they are supposed to be helping. And I think we need to call it out. We need to call them out. And when they talk about, well, we did this and we did that, but who did you do it for? Who's benefiting?
Right. I appreciate that. We're going to open up before you do that. Something you said resonated with me, to hit me hard. And it's one of the things that I learned a long time ago. And my mother said this to me very emphatically. She said she was in some meetings or somewhere, and they gave somebody an award. And she says, why are they giving them an award? They're not volunteers. They're getting paid for doing that. The award should go to people who go out of their ways, risk their lives and their livelihood to challenge systems and make it better. So I got baptized with that as a kid. And so it was like, at least I would say 30, 40 years before I took my first award. The only reason I took the award, I tell people, is because my wife made me do it. She says, you're unemployed, so I might help you get a job. But secondly, I actually turned down an award that would have gave me $1,000 when I was at Catholic Charities, and I refused. I went home and got chewed out about that. But my point is that part of the award process for some people, it inspires other people to do what you do. And so I kind of took it from a sense of humility. So I do have 2 awards in my lifetime that I got, but all the rest of them I rejected, because my mother basically said, if you're getting paid for something, don't take any extra money from folks. And then oftentimes they give you an award, they want you to do something that's not always in our best interest of our community. There's a question out here, and I think what we're going to do, Cheryl, is open it up because we've had a number of people sitting here, and I can see some of the people that I see are highly engaged and charged people, and they may want to ask you a question and share their experience. And one of the questions in the chat, Cheryl, is what gave you observation to revive in North Omaha? What observations do you have in North Omaha about adult ed opportunities and for those who need a GED? What kind of feedback would you have about that in helping some of our people who don't have their diploma or their formal education? What opportunities are out there for them?
I can't speak to all the opportunities that are out there, but I feel like they're not doing those that are in a position to be able to help individuals get their GED or to even, I think, let me back up, to even know about the programs. There's where the failure is. There's a lot of people want to get their G, but they don't know. It's just like, I used to think my husband was getting on me because we'd have these conversations back. And I'm like, they don't speak up. They don't say this. And he said, Cheryl, if you've never had that, if you've been living in the projects, not housing, public housing, we call them the projects. And it's been generation after generation. You don't know the questions to ask in order to get that, unless you happen to be fortunate enough to have someone in that family or something say and draw the line in the sand to say enough is enough, and we're not going to stay here anymore at this spot. So I think, and I hear, like at Metro Community College, but the last several people that I spoke to about, they got so many daggone requirements that you got to do this, that, and have that to get it. And so what good is it? Because you turn someone on. I think these programs, again here, these nonprofits, if you want to give some money to help somebody so that they can get into that program and be able to be successful. I mean, I see ads on TV time and time again about how great, and I'm not knocking it because they do have some, but it's programs like that we need to make more accessible to individuals who are working, like those who have been in the prison system. How do we get them early on and get them to understand how important it is? And one thing I'll throw out, just a program, there's a lady, and I don't have her name, and she has a CNA program, and she operates over in Bellevue. And she will help people because the healthcare field is one of the ones that people should be in now. I always say, if I was younger, I would take and hit that health career like right now, because that's where it's going to be, because people are living longer, getting older. So we need to have some of these nonprofits take and help individuals to get answers. Make it be known that they can come to you and get those answers.
Good. Use the word CNA. Some people may not know, certified nursing assistant.
Certified, right. And I apologize for that because I'm big on not.
I work with acronym people who say all kinds of stuff, and their gobbledygook loses me, and I sometimes have to pull out my dictionary to know what they're talking about. Yeah. Folks, we're going to open it up. We're going to do what we call an audible. We use that in our term when we switch up. Folks who may want to ask Cheryl questions directly, or you make a comment on something made, because hopefully this is a safe space. One of the things we do would like for you to do, if you can turn your camera on when you talk or say something so that we can see your face. Hopefully, you are not somewhere where you can't do that, but we like to have you talk directly to Cheryl. And that's another thing we're going to work on is we don't want people to be participants where they just sit there and watch through their dark screens or something. But how do you engage in a conversation like you're in a neighborhood or in a community or at a town hall meeting? And really, again, we don't have to agree. It's about building conversations about things that we don't know and also sharing stuff that we do know to gain a greater awareness. So anyone out there who wants to ask Cheryl a question or even comment on something that she said, and don't comment on the moderator because I'm the moderator. We'll say so. Yeah, anyway. That's part of the evaluation at the end of the session. But yeah, anything you want to say, this is one of the few opportunities you can do that. And I will say, we've had a lot of feedback where people really enjoy a chance to share with strangers and people like we used to do at Omaha Table Talk, where back in those days, we went in the community and dealt with things like this. Anyone else out there?
Don't be afraid. Because I can't reach out and touch you right now.
Stop it. Don't make me laugh. I'm trying to be a serious moderator today.
Cheryl, I have just a follow-up question for you. I've loved what you said. A lot of it is resonating a lot with me. And I guess I have two questions and they're not related. One, I'm not from Omaha. What is the Learning Centers?
The learning centers were developed sometime here by the Buffett Foundation, and they're called the Learning Centers. Well, let me back up. There's the Buffett Foundation that helped to start one of the learning centers.
Early Childhood Institute, that's one. And then the Learning Center is another organization, probably with public funds.
Right. Learning centers were developed out of the legislature. Senator Chambers was very helpful, but the Buffett Foundation started the
Early Childhood Learning Institute, started that young, what is it? What's the age? Preschool, right. Preschool all the way.
Preschool, so that every child could be able to get some education, some learning, to get socialized and so forth before they started in school. So it's kind of like a Head Start program, and every kid should be eligible to be able to get that. But I don't agree with everything that they teach.
And they didn't communicate with the community on a lot of stuff they did. They just came in and
they have been very involved in getting, I think it's been detrimental to North Omaha and South Omaha's home-based child learning facilities, daycares, whatever you want to call it. They have been very taking that away.
And the Learning Community is another nonprofit organization that's supposed to be providing education and enhance kids or families to do better in education. But if you look at the demographics over the years, it's really public money that's been thrown down rat holes. And the only reason I say that,
tax money
that has not produced the outcomes because they've had leadership and people who really have not connected with our community or with low-income families. They do have some kind of programs where they look at children through glass windows, but that's it. You had another question there?
Yeah. And I guess it does kind of relate. You were talking about just speaking out and holding some of these nonprofits and other institutions accountable. What are ways that you or others have actively done that without just sitting on boards or, some of the more formal ways to do that, I guess?
We don't get elected to boards, people like me. We don't get to be put on those boards. I'll give you an example. The mayor of Omaha has the power to nominate for many, many boards in Omaha. And I sent my resume in. Other people have sent their resume that are similar to me. We don't get on those boards. We don't get on the nonprofit boards. And that was one of the things that I testified when you look at the makeup of the boards. So we don't get on those. And they don't have the makeup of the people they're supposed to be trying to assist. I think that what we have to do is go to more of these meetings and speak up. One of the ones that I regularly go to is the Omaha Land Bank. We only get one little opportunity before the meeting starts, but the point is that you're there. If there was more representation, you speak up. Every opportunity that we have to be able to speak up, we need to speak up, speak out. We speak the truth. And if we're not, then tell us and show us why we're not. But that's the way that we change. If we had more individuals which would come forth and say, and not be intimidated, it's all right, you can step back or we could talk among ourselves, but that's not what it's going to take to make change. Change has to be made by people making that effort to get out there. One of the things that encourages me, and I've read was the late John Lewis, and I've taken that on as one of my mantras, is get into some good trouble. Get into some good trouble.
I like that. Does it answer your question? Other questions, other feedback?
Thank you for the questions.
We got about 15 more minutes.
But I don't hear you.
Is somebody speaking now?
Yes, I think is it Mark Jones too? Looks like.
Oh, her microphone's not working again.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
We
you're
can't
talking
hear
about Paula.
you.
Paula, can you hear us? Paula wants to say something. Or do you want to type it out, Paula?
She's gonna type it.
Okay.
Michael Keneally unmuted.
Mike, you want to say something? Yeah, you can talk, Mike. Yes, go ahead.
Dang, Ajmal, did I scare everybody?
I don't know. Hey, we just throwing on heavy light and going forward. Any other feedback? Sure, I was going to ask you another question is,
Okay.
how do you, Lindsay asked a question, in order to get feedback to the Omaha Land Bank, and I've written to the Shannon Snow, the director, at least twice. She's supposed to meet with me, never followed up on a phone call, so on, because we had a community forum with Moore probably about a few years ago, and they talked, and they were going to go back and implement some things of talking to the community about how they acquire land and how they hold land and so on. And I've never seen any really accountability. The other issue was, at one point, Precious McCash was going to be put on the land bank board by so-called Ben Gray when he was a city councilman, and I don't think that ever happened. So one of the things our communities criticize the land bank is that they're out there doing things without the community input, and Moore was very much instrumental in holding a community forum at First United Methodist Church about gentrification. It was a powerful meeting, and also we had people from the Omaha Planning Department there. And what came out of it was that we got some disjointed behaviors that are not engaging with some of the residents in our respective areas. Again, the land bank is one of those white elephants that I think has not been worth this cause for many grassroots. I know it was created by Unicamera, but again, it goes back to what you just said earlier. Other feedback. Paula, did your mic come in, or did you type out what you wanted? Here it is. Can you see the Cheryl there? Is there a community board schedule
that we could discuss and prioritize questions? You know, that's a good one. I'm not exactly aware, but that might be something. If you're willing, I'm willing. Let's start.
That may be something we can help with more also, because we're trying to convene people to do these very things, because Omaha is kind of not always on the cutting edge of in community engagement. There's part two of that question too. Sometimes the agenda is so controlled and the question and comments aren't always allowed. Are there some who allow open discussions in these organizations?
They will usually have either at the very beginning or at the end for public comment, or for you to make a statement. And here's a point. Why don't we get more forceful and start demanding, especially some of these that are taxpayer funded?
Right. Yeah, I get tired of paying taxes to organizations, nonprofits, and particularly city and government or whatever, when they don't hire people who look like us or people from our respective communities. And so why are we paying taxes and none of us get those jobs that go to friends of the system? Those are the questions that we need to ask. Keep repeating the point. Our city and our public officials should at least look somewhat symbolic of the community that they serve, and it's not always the case. There's another comment here. 75 North, how effective do you think this Highlander is or could be for us adding value to North Omaha? What's your perspective on the Highlander and the 75 North enterprise that's been going on?
Well, I'm supposed to have some kind of talk with, can't think of her name right now, young lady that took over 75 North, but I am critical, but hopeful that things are going to change. One of the things that when that came before the city council, one of my points was, I would like to see that development have contractors from North Omaha or the community to be able to be more involved in the constructing of the properties that's on there. The second thing was that those who were displaced, they should have first rights to being in the new, I call them the vertical, we're going back to the vertical projects, but in that new housing development, I believe those who have been displaced should have the first rights to have, to be able to move into one of those units. She appears to be like, it may be a good thing. I do know that one of the members in the North Omaha Pride Association has been given several properties that he will build. And I hope that that will mean that there will be more. So I see that there is hope on the horizon, and I would like to get together with her and those who are involved and make it more community involvement. I would like to see, why aren't you hosting more community? And even though it may get a little hot in those conversations, why don't you open it up so people can necessarily speak out? And maybe you can find ways that people can become more involved with that Highlander project.
You know, Cheryl, I would add to that. I go up there sometime to have coffee and have a meeting, but I do notice that there are very few people of color in that building on a consistent basis. I mean, people drop in for coffee, but the fact that it's right in the middle of North Omaha, you know, Creighton has a place there, Metro has a place, but it's underutilized. I mean, I think it's one of those nice buildings, and it could be a vibrant community center for people to do a lot of stuff. I do know they have classrooms there, but at the end of the day, I do know that you have to have some kind of liability insurance to even get to use some of those places. And I know Creighton has cut their use down because of COVID-19. But unfortunately, I did see they were doing something related to mediation or meditation or whatever, which are good things. But again, those are not the most pressing issues affecting the North Omaha community. And so if you're going to build a building in the middle of a community, it should have a certain amount of cycling in and out of some of the very residents who are in that area. We got about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to give other folks a chance because we're going to close.
I think Karen has her hand up. Karen.
Okay, go ahead. Somebody go there. Go for it.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to just comment before my question on the 75 North project, because I'd really like to see the data, because one of the things that I've heard through the grapevine is that although the housing that was developed was supposed to be mixed use housing, and that means a variety of costs of rental housing available to different economic levels, that in reality, there really isn't any that's available for folks who aren't middle class or above. And so I'd really like to see the data on what's happening with that. But
can I just interrupt before you have that question? And that's part of my point is, if they would have more community meetings to speak and tell what's going on and provide that data, I think that would help eliminate the feelings that people have about that project. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would love to see that.
And then my question for you was about what you talked about earlier, the sense that you have that the as you put it, the so-called leaders, the self-designated leaders, the gatekeepers who get into positions of power and are the designated leaders of North Omaha. My question is, how do they get those positions? How do they keep those positions? And when you talk about holding them accountable, what can we do to create a movement or to create some strategies to hold them accountable?
Okay, one of the things is to be able to get out there, come together and put it out. We know we have this little circle, and there was an article that was done by Reynolds, an editorial, where he brought it out and highlighted all these little, the circle and the individuals that were involved. And we know it, so we ought to speak about it. Why are we afraid to say, we know that the Empowerment Network, who's behind that. I just went to some meetings. I just heard Willie Barney talk about this great thing and how he's supportive of North Omaha, and him and his wife are so supportive of it. They're having 2 businesses and they have this and they have that, but that's their design. We have individuals mainly who are through the city of Omaha, who the mayor appoints, that are all connected. You've got the Willie Barneys, you've got the Warren, you've got you've got all this, and there's just this little bunch who have been designated Black folks, and we in the neighborhood, we call them the Negroes. There's just this little group, and they decide, because the money flow comes to them. Put out the facts. Put out the facts of what's behind this. And I have to keep going back, as I said, Ajamal's mother and I hope it's not a bad feeling coming up. His mother has passed. But as she said, these are the Negroes that are making their wealth, their legacy off of the backs of the programs and the money that is channeled to North Omaha, particularly. I can talk about North Omaha because I don't know the facts on South Omaha. We need to do that. We need to get our elected officials to put out the facts and make these people be accountable. Just as I said about this North Omaha turnback tax. Why aren't we putting out the facts? Why isn't the media? They are always quick to give out the negative, but you don't see the media talking about this little group of designated North Omaha leaders. They don't do that because City Hall tells them you don't print that. So what can we do? And people who are on this call, get in touch. I'm willing to work with anyone that is going to make it possible where the middle class, which is being left behind, most of these programs that come out, you got to be poor, dirt poor, before you can get some assistance and help. But what about the person who's struggling and wants to stay in North Omaha and they're working 2 jobs? What about their housing? What about the jobs that's paid? The one thing that the pandemic has done is made it possible for individuals to have a job. If you want a job and they're forcing them to pay a wage. Right now, there's a petition going around that we need to be signing, and it needs to be circulated about at least getting a minimum wage of $15. Because this is the time that these companies are being forced to pay a decent wage. So we need to do those types of things. We need to hold those accountable where this money's coming in, because just like the art funds, they're going to have just nonprofit organizations decide how to divvy it up. And so let's do some more walks. Be right there at City Hall. So when they look out the window, I would tell you one of the most powerful things I ever saw was for Omaha was years ago when I can't remember what they called it, but the parks were involved. And we had a walk, and we stopped traffic for the blocks that was in front of City Hall to get our point across. We need to do more of that. We need to hold all of these, Facebook, instead of telling about all your personal life, let's get out there and say, hey, so-and-so is doing this with the money that was supposed to be going here. This is what's happening. That's how we get to change. I hope I answered.
Sure, we're down to the last 3 minutes, and we obviously we want to basically, oftentimes what we do is make some closing comments and so on. One is we do ask the participants to fill out the evaluation form and suggest things that we might do in the future. We have a couple of things coming up in March. I think we're going to have Palmer Strong talk about redlining. And I do know the UNO Service Learning is doing something related to redlining. They put together a committee, but how do you address redlining in our segregated Nebraska? Because many of our housing and real estate folks have been complicit in this segregation for many years, and these kind of things where they didn't sell homes or make it possible to have much more integrated city, because we're very apartheid segregated city. So that's an event. We're also going to have Ryan Spahn, who's a academician who deals with research or dealing with data and dealing with race. And so we want to expand that whole concept. How do you talk about racialized data, and how do you get organizations to make it more public? And again, a lot of organizations don't talk about it. They're afraid of it. And we don't know who they serve because they don't keep any background information on that. And then I don't know if you noticed earlier, Karen had on her, she's the treasurer of our board. She had on her MORE t-shirt. This is a shameless plug. We have these t-shirts that says MORE, pursuing anti-racism movement, I'm all for race equity. I will tell you, I bought at least 7 or 8 of them, sent it to my siblings who live out of town because they're very proud of Omaha in some regards, but I'm challenging folks to look at that. It's not a major fundraiser, it's more like an advertisement to let people know you're against racism. And I challenge people to kind of think about that as an opportunity, as a gift to yourself or other folks on the t-shirt that speaks about your involvement in dealing with anti-racism. George Floyd was killed in Minnesota about a year or so ago, and the whole trial is still kind of going on in some aspects of it, but what have we done? A lot of people donate money to Black Lives Matter. And so what we're in Omaha trying to do is how do we go upstream and deal with this reconciliation and race issues where you got 4 police officers who can be involved in a murder of person. And again, it has happened many times in this country, but they've gotten away with it because it's not recorded. But what do we do with that collective guilt that we felt as a society universally to address those kind of issues? So that's where more is at. How do we move beyond some of these incidents and tragedies and try to do a better job in improving our society? We're down to about our last minute. And as we close out, I would like to say, join us again when we do these events, probably at least every 2 weeks. Our goal is to bring people involved in doing social justice, talking about racial equality. The last point I will say is that we really would love to see a greater, stronger Black-Brown coalition and other people of color and white and so on. And I will say, in fact, I have not gotten a lot of takers from the Latino community. There's a few people who reach across the tracks. Dodge is considered the tracks in the city because you go north-south and again, the east-west 72nd. But we'd like to see more people reach across the tracks and have outcomes from what they do. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Talking with Cheryl Weston, who is a long-time community advocate. Cheryl, we thank you for being here today, of course, and sharing all the wisdom. And hopefully we can have you back again to talk more about how do we bring this coalition together to do the work.
Can I sneak in? I got to interrupt you one thing is because I've been talking about holding accountable. Okay, I'm going to hold them more accountable. If you want this, why don't you get more out there involved? This is great to have these, but how do we, people from the community, get involved more with more to make more get more involved with this community?
I love it.
To help with racial justice, injustice, and so forth.
And what most people don't know, we're inverted pyramid. We have board members, we have no really paid staff, and we're all volunteers, and most of us don't have day jobs. So we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart, and that's what we want to expand. And at one point, one elected official thought we had a major budget in this. I said, no, we're just doing this on our own QT time. So you're right, Cheryl. We want to get more involved, and we're also looking at expanding our fundraising capabilities so that we can do more of this work and bring the good people together in Nebraska and in Omaha, more so in Omaha, together to raise and challenge some of the issues. But thank you for that challenge, and we're up for the challenge. You know, at the end of the day, it's a squeeze worth the juice, and that's what we're talking about here tonight. So thank you very much, Cheryl, for being on our program, and thank you for all of those who participated. And one question I will ask, and I'll leave with folks, is why do people keep their screens dark? I mean, are you in some place that we can't be seen? So we want to talk a little bit more about that. We want to make a much more community engaged process, but hope you join us again next time we do another event. And check our webpage, check out our shirts on our webpage, and we maybe bring some coffee mugs out that call anti-racism, so you can sit them on your desk and let them know that you're involved in our struggle. And check out, I got to put my plug in. If you put yours in for more, I'm putting mine in. We will be dropping some more videos to our YouTube channel, Conversations with Cheryl Weston on YouTube. So check that out too. And thank you. We're about a couple of minutes over, so I don't want them to turn my electricity off today because I'm using too much electricity in the house. So join us the next time for another program, and check us out on moreomaha.org. Thank you. As we always say, may the force be with you, and Baroko, which means good night in Setswana.